Hola amigos, I am the Soccer Rudo and I am pumped! It is finally here, the start of the Canadian Championships this week. Now, if you're new to soccer, you might be a little bit confused here. I mean, Canadian Championships just starting? Then isn't the CPL champion the Canadian champion? Well, time to insert my pirate meme here because, well, yes, but actually no. You see, football's a funny little sport. In North America, we're used to our sports all having a regular season, then the top finishers get rewarded with a trip to the playoffs and a quest for glory. That's all well and good, but it's not the typical setup in world football. In most soccer-loving countries, there's no playoffs, just a single table that lasts the whole year, and sure, works fine. The best team over the whole season is champion. But in order to spice things up, there's other competitions going on at the same time, completely separate from the league title chase. This is the Cup, a domestic competition to determine a national champion in addition to a league champion. You know, I've always thought other sports should have a cup. For example, I'd love to see a Canadian Championship for hockey, a competition for the 7 Canadian NHL teams to compete for bragging rights and a trophy. You might even include the top Allen Cup contending teams or top major junior teams, just for some intrigue. And hey, with a Canadian Cup, the Toronto Maple Leafs could actually win something for once, since they aren't getting close to this cup anytime soon. The best known example of this is the FA Cup in England because it's the oldest. Teams from the Premier League compete as well as teams from the Championship, League One, League Two, and all the way through 10 tiers of English football, right through to the regional leagues and semi-pro clubs. And yeah, in theory, those semi-pro clubs could go up against the biggest teams in the country. And that's part of the intrigue of the Cup, is when you see those Cinderella runs or those little clubs going giant killing. Now, hearing all that, if you're just getting into soccer with a brand new CPL club in your town, you probably think this is great. You've got the CPL spring season, fall season, CPL overall championship, and now the Canadian Championship. There's so many trophies available to be won. But don't delude yourself into thinking this is the Oprah Winfrey show of soccer over here. You get a trophy, you get a trophy, everyone gets a trophy. Not quite. Remember, there's way more than just the Canadian Premier League involved in the Canadian Championship. The Canadian national team supporters group, the Voyageurs, created the Voyageurs Cup back in 1993. They pooled their money and they bought a trophy and presented it to the Canadian team with the best record against the other Canadian teams in L1O, which was where the country's only pro teams played at the time. There was finally a real tournament starting in 2008, a small one. NASL, Montreal Impact, and USL, Vancouver Whitecaps, started playing against the brand new MLS club, Toronto FC. Over the years, Montreal and Vancouver have moved to MLS, and the tournament would add the original FC Edmonton, as well as Ottawa Fury, and even the League 1 Ontario and PLSQ champions. This year, the tournament more than doubles in size, adding all 7 CPL clubs. It's amazing to see CPL involved in this, and great to dream about a deep run, but let's be real here. CPL clubs right now are the equivalent of a League 2 club in England staring up at the Premier League teams in front of them. Yes, one of us might share the field with the likes of, the Canadian equivalent of Manchester United, but it would be a huge shock if a game like that was even close. Here's how it all shakes out for this year, and yes, people who know the format well and have been waiting for me to get to this part, I agree with you. It's bullcrap. It's a bullcrap reason, but I'm not going to lose my mind over it. It's a crappy reason, but this is just year one, and in year one, I'll live with it. The League 1 Ontario champions, Voyageurs, and PLSQ champions, AS Blainville, started round 1 with 4 of the CPL clubs. Halifax Wanderers are going to play Vaughan, York 9 versus Blainville, and Cavalry and Pacific FC in the only all-CPL matchup. The winners advance to play the remaining CPL clubs, Forge FC, Valor FC, and FC Edmonton. Those were given byes to the second round because they're the founding clubs and they were certified before the others. Again, bullshit reason, but you do what you have to do to make the math work out, I suppose. The brackets are locked. We know the Halifax Vaughan winner will play Valor in round 2, the Cavalry Pacific winner will play Forge, and York 9 Blainville will move on to Edmonton. From there, Vaughan Halifax Valor meets Ottawa Fury of USL, while Pacific Calgary Forge's winner will meet Vancouver Whitecaps, and the York Blainville Edmonton winner will face Montreal Impact. From there, 3 of those clubs will move on and join Toronto FC in the semi-finals. A spot in the CONCACAF Champions League is the ultimate prize, along with the Voyageurs Cup itself, of course. I still see people quite frequently online saying they think CPL could be as good as MLS in 5 years, and I keep thinking, you don't watch MLS, do you? Look, the gap in quality between the CPL and MLS is massive, and it's going to be for the foreseeable future. The Canadian Championship's a great thing for CPL. It makes more matches, it makes some new opponents, it'll create natural rivalries, and it's a pathway for CPL clubs to come up against the big clubs from MLS. Can you imagine what happens if Pacific FC ends up meeting Vancouver Whitecaps? And as much as I'm pumping the brakes on expectations, I do believe upsets are possible. If you've watched this tournament in the past, the likes of Toronto FC would basically play their bench in a game against Ottawa Fury or FC Edmonton. I'm sure that will be the case again versus a CPL club. You won't see Pozuelo or Josie Altidore starting against a CPL side. But if the MLS teams take them lightly, yes, you could see CPL getting a goal or two or even a win. It's possible. I think the MLS would come back more focused in the second leg, score a bunch of goals, and end up winning and advancing. After all, it would be a massive embarrassment for an MLS side to lose to a CPL team, especially in this season. But soccer can be a strange sport. When the average margin of victory is usually a single goal, just one bounce could be the difference, and hey, crazy things can happen.
So you're telling me there's a chance? Yeah!
Yes, there's a chance. There's always a magic of the cup, but I do expect MLS teams to come out on top. The most interesting part of the bracket is Valor and Halifax's path. No disrespect to Vaughan Azzurri, but the Wanderers should handle them. Vaughan isn't a pro team, and most of the League One Ontario Stars signed CPL contracts, so this is a very different looking Vaughan team than the one that was dominant last season. So assuming Halifax gets by Vaughan in the opening round, that gives Halifax against Valor. These two teams played just this past week, a very even game that could have gone either way, and that winner meets Ottawa Fury. That's a juicy match everyone wants to see. CPL versus Ottawa, the club that was to be the CPL's 8th club, but passed on the chance to join the new league. It's hard to blame Ottawa too much for that decision. Okay, for most people, it's no trouble to blame Ottawa for that decision. But CPL was an unknown, and Ottawa already had players under contract. They already had, a budget and a way of doing things in USL that they knew. They chose to stick with what they knew and take the wait-and-see approach on the CPL, and I get that. But that decision looks bad now. And then, of course, there's the bad blood with the CSA trying to force Ottawa Fury into the CPL, Ottawa talking smack back at the CPL. This match will be a war, whether it's Valor or Halifax against the Fury. And if the Wanderers or Valor can topple Ottawa Fury, then they get TFC in the semis. I've said before, and I'll say it again, Halifax could lose every single game of the spring and fall seasons. I don't care. If they make the semis of the Cup, I call that a winning season. And yeah, I know, it's not real likely, but as Kevin Garnet once said,
anything's possible. Anything's possible!
I am the Soccer Rudo, and until next time, I wish you and your club good luck in the Voyageurs Cup, and good lucha things.